that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today we have the fortunate opportunity to sit down with Mitch Brooks. Brooksy, I've been very lucky guy to have known you for a long time, obviously, but for those of you who don't know Mitch Brooks, he's a battler. He played his minor hockey in this area, obviously a little bit outside of town, so with one of the AAA teams outside of town, and then went on to play junior. Had a little stint at a couple of OHL camps, which was great, and then played at Western University. And if you looked at yourself at like 12 years old and said, hey, man, one day you're going to play, university hockey, I know that's everyone's goal to play in the NHL and stuff like that. But as you're going through it, I'll be honest with you, when I knew you at 12, it would have been, I had a lot of confidence in you, a lot of confidence in you, but would have been a stretch, right? And not only just the university hockey level, because it's a good level, but going to university, was that ever on your radar?
Yeah, that's funny. I remember like going back to Stratty afterwards and like saying I'm going to school, or even seeing buddies from when I was 16 and I played junior D. And like those guys, they actually all went to school. That's why they were in Tempsford. And they said, like, you went to school, man? And like, honestly, partway through high school, I had written off going to university. Like I said, like I hate school. Like I loved going and seeing everyone. Like I was very social part, yeah, that was awesome. But like sitting in class for 6 hours, I was like, no chance. Like once I'm done high school, I'm done. But I got to being done junior hockey, and I remember it was actually my second last year is when it really kicked in, because a lot of my buddies were 94, so they were done the year before, and I'm like, I'm not ready to be done, like, so I got to find a way to keep playing, and obviously it's no secret, like I have a connection to Western, and so I knew that was a reasonable opportunity, and I was like, okay, like if I want to keep playing, this is what I got to do, and now I'm beyond thankful and appreciative that I got that opportunity, because I ended up loving university. Like high school was no fun, high school was fun, but just the school part wasn't. But university is a completely different ball game, and I loved the lifestyle. It was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things. And we're gonna get into we'll get into the weeds here a little bit on kind of your story, because I think it'll resonate a lot with a lot of parents, number one, and a lot of kids out there that go through minor hockey and have some bumps along the way or some obstacles along the way. Some kids float through the whole time. They're good. They're high end. They kind of go all the way through exactly how you planned it. Like play AAA, get drafted, play in the O, get drafted, play in the NHL, retire, and be rich. It's awesome.
I was just a hair away from that.
So was I. That one coach messed me up.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, like for you, I think it was obviously always a battle. And when you talk about university and for young kids out there, I was just talking to a young kid the other day. His eyes are set on the OHL. He wants to play in the OHL. And I understand it. We're in an area where OHL is a big part of our hockey. But I asked him, like, well, what about college? Or what about like Canadian university? He's like, no, I want to play in the O. I want to play in the O. I'm like, well, he's a smart kid too, like does well in school. And man, you got to keep your options open because, it's not easy to play in the O, number one. It's not easy to play college hockey or university hockey. So you got to keep your options open and see what is there, and how things go. And I think for you, obviously a little bit of a later bloomer. So for you, college is a bit greater or a way better opportunity, because now you got another couple of years of junior. You can develop a little bit more, get stronger, mature, and then hopefully get an opportunity to play college,
Yeah.
Was there a big, when you went from junior hockey to college hockey, we're going to kind of go here and then we'll go back, but when you went from junior hockey to college or to university hockey, did you notice like, wow, this is quite a step? Like these guys are good.
It was different. So first of all, when you're in junior, especially like my last year, I was out in Penticton, like we had a couple guys that got drafted in the NHL, you know what I mean? And other guys who are wanting to go play NCAA, which is obviously a very competitive level. Like hockey's everything. Like you're there and every single day it's hockey. But when you go to college, especially at Western, I mean, you have school, you have guys living on their own for the first time, and then you have hockey. So that was a big transition for me. Like guys have kind of different priorities. And that ranges. I mean, there's some guys who are still all about hockey. There's some guys who maybe are more into school, or some guys who are more into partying. Like it's a little bit more of a variety. But as far as the hockey part goes, I remember actually thinking, and my buddy Bex, he came to Western at the same time I did. He played in the BCJHL. We played against each other.
Yeah.
And we both said, we're like, man, this league is slower, but it's smarter. Like, you know what I mean? You're not going up against like a little 16-year-old anymore who just fresh out of minor hockey or something like that. You know what I mean? You're going against a man, and maybe he's not as quick, but like just the smarts of him, like going into battles, it's like, well, that guy just beat me on a battle, just because it's like just like an old man trick. He's 25 years old. He's been playing the game for that much longer. You know what I mean? And definitely the size was the difference, but yeah, it's a different game for sure. And there's definitely a transition to that for sure.
It's funny you say that because I 100% agree with you. I think when players go up higher levels, so for instance, for me personally, when I went from junior to college was fast. Like it was really quick at the NCAA level, because you had that, you had 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, so a little bit older guys, but it was like, I call it like horse racing. You just open the gate and guys are like four lines of guys just buzzing and hitting and crashing. When I went from college to pro, the game was slower and way smarter. Yeah. I mean, guys would like handle you with one hand on their stick and make, turn you into a pretzel. Guys would get pucks off you easy. Guys would win draws by just standing up because they were smart. It was a way smarter game, but it was way more fun to play because it was more positional. Yeah. You guys knew where they were a little bit more. You knew you had support on the left side or right side. You know what I mean? Whereas in college, it was like kind of a crapshoot because everyone's just buzzing around. You know?
That's what it was like in the BCHL too. I remember
kind of buzzing, right? Everyone's kind of flying around.
Yeah, I remember even my old man saying that because he would have had to watch it online at the start, and then he came out, and I remember him saying to me the first few games he watched online, he's like, "Man, are you sure about this? Like what? Like coming here rather than staying in Strati? You know what I mean?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's legit out here." And then he came out and watched the game live. He's like, You're right. Like, this is another speed for sure.
And for any parents out there that are kind of going through minor hockey and stuff in Canada and even in the States, I mean, if you're looking to go to college or any kind of NCAA or even Canadian university, the best league in Canada for that is going to be probably the BCJ, which is the junior league out in BC. And on teams you played out there, I mean, on teams you're going to have potentially 10, 12, 13 commits on a team, which is crazy, right? On some of these teams, like, so you have 10 to 12 guys that are already committed to NCAA schools on full scholarships for the most part. And then every team's got maybe one or two draft picks, right?
Put it this way. So my year I was there, in the stands each night, we'd have more D1 commits than we had in our junior B loop. And the year I was there was a bit of a exception, not the rule, but we had two guys from our team go first round, and then there was another guy from Chilliwack who went first round. They were all before any WHL picks, so it's a legit league, man. Like there's no joke. And then we had another guy on our team, Scott Conway. He played at Penn State the year before. He had some sort of an incident there, so he had to come back and play for us. But like he was up for Rookie of the Year at Penn State, and he came back and played for us. Like it was no joke. Like it was and it was great for me. Just, I mean, we'll probably get into it a little bit more, but coming from Strata the year before, I mean, being like leading scorer, all that sort of thing. And then I went there and like third, fourth line, being a leader, you know what I mean? And it makes a man out of you pretty quick when you're dealing with that and you're on your own, you're across the country from your family, and just beyond grateful for that experience for sure.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. That's really cool. I was talking to Josh Gratton a couple days ago, and he had mentioned the same thing. He said
his pod would probably be a lot more interesting than mine.
No. But the thing with him that he talked about was, in junior at one point in the OHL, he had 30 goals. Like he could score, he could play, he could fight. Mm-hmm. But then when he got to pro, he had to assume a totally different role. And you're in the same boat. In Stratford, you're, leading scorer. You're one of the leaders on the team. You're go-to guy, top six, playing tons of minutes. And then you go to a better league in the BCJ. Now you're third, fourth line, energy guy, penalty kill, play your role, be a leader, make guys comfortable. For sure. But you embrace that role, like I know you did, and man, you had an unreal year as far as just the learning experience. Yeah. Awesome hockey, obviously, made some good buddies and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, let's be moving forward, that's kind of the role that you've assumed going to that next level as well. And you've embraced it and you've been really good at it. But a lot of guys have a hard time with that. You see that crossroads of, man, I was a leading goal scorer. I was a top six on my team. I don't want to play bottom six. I don't want to play, which to me on any good team, elite team, bottom six to me is just as important as top six. Mm-hmm. Despite playing less minutes and maybe not playing as much, those bottom six guys bring energy. They kill minutes. They kill penalties. They contribute offensively. It's a big part of any team.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of that role is understanding that and being like, okay, listen, I'm not going to get as many goals as Tyson Jost, but I want to have as big of an impact as him. You know what I mean? When I'm on the ice, like I may have half as many shifts, but I want the whole other team to hate me. You know what I mean? Like I'm going out there to serve a purpose. And so I think and it's funny, I'm coaching minor hockey now with the Chiefs there, and this one kid this week moved into the wing. And like he's not pumped about that at all. You know what I mean? Like, and it was a big deal to him. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, first of all, I think this is gonna make you a better hockey player. Like you're gonna learn the wing, you're gonna learn a new position, like that's fantastic. But like now this is about more than hockey. Like you just need to learn how to deal with just adversity or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? And it's just gonna be it's a great chance for you, and you're gonna grow as a person too. And I think that's something I really learned from hockey is like all the transferable lessons that you get from hockey. Like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
No, for sure. And I mean, you're an older guy now, and young obviously, but like you're kind of moved past hockey a little bit now, and you can kind of reflect on your career. And that's kind of why I wanted to have you in here, because you can reflect on what you played and some of the stuff that you went through. I'm sure you're like, I hate this. At the time, I hate this coach. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then now you look back like, wait a second, I wasn't that good. Or wait a second, I understand now why he moved me here or there, right? But at the time, and I think like even for these young guys that you're coaching right now, I think it's really important to have a young guy who's not that far removed from the game, because you still understand that hockey's hard. Yeah. So when a kid misses a chip or a dump or something, like it's not easy to do that, man. Yeah. It's hard. So you understand that part, but you also understand that you may have to play on the third line. You may miss a shift today, or you may have to move from the center to the wing or whatever. And I mean, for young kids, having that explained to them, I think is huge. Yeah. Because it happens so often where it's like, you're just playing the wing today. And it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't 100%. Know why am I punished for this? You know what I mean? So getting that explained, I think, is massive. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that story of like stuff that you think of at different times. So I remember when I was in Strati, I think it was my first or second year. And, like me being the player at the time, I was like pissed at my coach. But now I'm just like, what am I thinking? Like my coach was so right. Like it was just a simple thing. He said, listen, do not turn over pucks at the blue line. And I just kept doing it. And like right now I'm like, why would I keep doing that? And so I remember the one time I did it and he sat me for like half a game. Like I was on the middle of the bench half the game. And after I texted my old man, I said, come to the bus. I'm leaving. We're asking for a trade. And so my old man comes over and he, like, you know, Dubsy, like if it's a small problem, he gets wound up, but if it's a big serious problem, he just stays cool as a cucumber. And I said to him, I said, get me the fuck out of here. Like I'm going home. Like I've had enough. I don't give a shit. And he goes, okay, that's no problem. He says, take the bus home and we'll talk tomorrow. He says, just trust me right now. Just take that bus home. So whatever, I take the bus home and things calmed down, you know, and we had a good talk. Probably you were involved in that conversation as well. And then if I would have left there, like, that doesn't look good on me getting traded anywhere else. Like you're being a powder, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like one of the best years of my life was in Strati. So I would have missed out on that. Like it was just one of those moments where it's like, hey dude, you got to suck it up here. Like, you're part of a team. This isn't about you, you know? And no, for sure. And that's and that's another thing I love about you is sharing some of these stories, because we'll get into minor hockey here now. And Stratford Culletons obviously is like a storied franchise. It's been around forever. Tons of good teams, tons of players out of there. You had a chance to play there for a couple of years, which is great. But it wasn't easy to get there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an easy path for you. It wasn't just like a smooth sailing. Here we go, you know? So starting kind of at the beginning, just real quick. But at what age did you start playing hockey, and what were your influences to get into it? So I know you don't have a brother, but you know, was it kind of your dad or uncles or buddies or something to kind of like push your dad to like get him on skates, or was it just being Canadian and you know, on a farm and like you're putting boots on?
My mom and dad will laugh at this, but this actually started before I was even born. Like,
oh no,
the old man. So my dad's a cattle farmer, obviously, right? And he breeds cattle. He was using the breeding charts to figure out how to get me as a January baby. I swear to God, that's what he's doing. Yeah. So my old man was, he's a really good athlete growing up, but on a much smaller scale. Like he was farming first, and then like, he was into all his like school sports, and he was a hell of a ball player, I guess. Like when he was like 15, he was playing on 3 different men's teams. Like he's real competitive. And then he had a love for hockey. And then once I was born, I think I was like skating I was January 5th baby. I think I was skating the December before I was 2. Like he had me going early and stuff. And yeah, I just loved it right away. And we were right into it. Like even I just remember as kids playing mini sticks, like me and my one buddy, we'd put our jerseys on, we'd play mini sticks. He'd sing the anthem before we played mini sticks. Like I always just loved it. And it was just, so I started playing when I was 4, and then I just played in Dorchester there. And then when I was how old are you? Like 10 for minor, Adam?
Yeah, 9 usually, but
Yeah. So then we started, went and played for the Chiefs, and that was really cool. Like, obviously kind of the thing there to know is like Bo Horvat was on the team. So he was always a stud, and more importantly, he was always a phenomenal teammate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he was as good as a teammate as he was on the ice. Like he was always, I don't have a single bad thing to say about him. And then, at that age, like I was pretty good too. Like me and Bo, we played together. And then as I kind of got older, I just needed to learn a lot more about the game. And I ended up, I think it was minor Bantam. I ended up getting cut. Like I slowly went from like the top and just kind of worked my way down, just thinking I was Rob Shrimp.
Well, I was going to say, yeah. But I was going to say, like, looking back on it now, right? Like, you played with a guy like Bo Horvat who ends up, moving on or whatever. But even at young ages, and I know Bo had left for a couple of years, came back. You look at with minor hockey, and I look at 2 examples. So, like, you and Bo, let's say, kind of close. And this is some more for parents, but doesn't matter how good your kids are at 9, 10, 11 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you went on to have a great push too. But look at some of the guys on that team that were really good and never went on to play past minor hockey, never went on to play past junior. Yeah. And regardless of how good or bad they were, it doesn't matter. But who are the guys that went on to play? Like who are the guys overall? So you went, and we're going to talk about your kind of stumble a little bit in Bantam, but who are the guys that went on to play past minor, midget, AAA, and junior hockey? Was it the most talented guys? Some. Or was it the guys that like put the work in, put the time in, put the effort in?
Yeah, I always found, like, I was thinking about this the other day, actually, just because I have played with a few guys who made the NHL, and it was like they had such a perfect balance of worrying about today, but at the same time seeing the bigger picture. Like Bo was always thinking, okay, today I got to be my best. I'm going to get better. You know what I mean? Same with anyone else, but it was always like, okay. Let's say I get 5 goals today. It's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Like no one gives a shit. Like we're in minor hockey. You know what I mean? But he was like, me getting 5 goals today. Okay, now I got something to build off tomorrow. You know what I mean? Whereas I think there's other guys I played with where it was like, yo, I just got 50 reps in Pee Wee. Like it's like, okay, awesome. Like that's cool. Good for you. But like, there's a lot more than just that.
And this is the thing with minor hockey and you're going through it now as a coach. I think one of the things that I really try to stress with parents, especially and coaches, is minor hockey, no offense, is a joke. It's political. Yeah, it's
100%.
The kids are young and they're not that good. My kid's the best 9-year-old. There's no good 9-year-olds. They're 9. Like they're good for their age.
Yeah.
But like, NHL's good. Yeah. Okay. That's good. So let's get them to that point. Let's get them better for Pee Wee when they're in Adam. Let's start preparing them. So let's work on skills. Let's figure out the mental side of the game. Let's do all those things to get them better. And to your point, like no 2 NHL guys are sitting around a locker room and being like, hey man, in AAA and Pee Wee, I had 72 snipes. Like, they would look at each other like, you're an idiot, man. What are you talking about, right? So it's to your point, it's like, what are we doing today to get better for tomorrow? And whether that's sleeping correctly and having good sleep or eating right or doing whatever that is, right? I agree. I think so many people get caught up in that Adam age group, we got to win the Alliance Championship. We got to win our championship. And what?
Yeah.
Well, how about getting the kids better? How about getting prepared for Pee Wee? How about worrying about that? And not saying winning isn't good. Like that's great. I'm all for it. But is that the big picture, or is the big picture getting these kids ready for, being good people first and then 100%. Moving to that next level?
Same with like, obviously Bo comes up a lot because of who he is, but whether it's him or anyone else, like I don't remember, I couldn't tell you a single game where Bo was dominant. I have no idea. But anyone asks you, well, I'm like, dude, that guy's like one of the best human beings I know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And one of the things that, like, it's just basically, I don't want to get too in depth to it, but it's his mindset and his approach that I remember more so than he had a sick wrist shot or, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, I think that's what really separates the true winners apart.
Okay, but let me ask you this, and I know you're not you're a modest guy, but if I met one of your buddies on the street or a guy that played with you, especially in junior when you kind of like found your way and you found who you are, what do you think those guys would say about you? Bad teammate? Stole money out of my wallet? Like, no, it'd be like, the guy's a beauty. He's awesome. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this is a guy, by the way, we didn't even touch on this, which we will talk about, how has never had a sip of alcohol in his life. So you can't say like you're a party guy, you're going out partying, you're getting buckled with the boys, like you've never even drank before. So like, and I want to touch on that in a sec when we get into junior hockey, but you know what I mean? Like, what would guys say? You know what guys would say? Like, you could pick up the phone today and call Jost, who plays for Colorado Avalanche and probably be like, hey, what's going on? And pick up where you left off. And you know what I mean? Like you go probably have dinner with them in Colorado if you're out there watching a game. Like, so and not everybody has that opportunity. Not everyone is a good teammate. Not everyone remembers. I bet you there's teams that you played on, you don't even remember some of the guys. Yeah. Because they're just, no offense to them, they're just irrelevant. They just didn't talk a lot. They just didn't socialize. They just didn't get in. You know what I mean?
100%.
So I think that's important too, right? Now, let me ask you this. How does that happen? So how does Bo Horvat become a good guy? How does Mitch Brooks become a good guy? How does John Smith become a good guy? Is it because they have good coaches? Is it because they've got good buddies? Or is it because they've got parents that give a shit, take time with them? Yeah. You know what I mean?
100%.
And aren't doing it right all the time. But man, I look at Bo's parents. I know them well. I know your parents well. Like, and don't get me wrong, Tim is an intense hockey dad. Yeah. Your dad is an intense hockey dad.
100%.
Like, but I think they did a really good job of like keeping you guys straight and not letting you get too big for your britches and giving you confidence when you need confidence and pulling you back when you need to get pulled back. And
100%.
So I think if you peel it back, I think that's one of the reasons why you see these guys that are, good people, right?
For sure. And I can definitely speak for myself when I say that, like my parents were incredible, and that's, it's not an easy job at all because, I guess it depends on the competitive level of your child, but like I think my parents did a great job of like sometimes fueling the fire, but at the same time being like let's say my dad, for example. I think a lot of maybe minor hockey parents would have seen how some things happen and been like, he's too hard on Mitch, you know what I mean? But it's like, okay, I see parents that especially now in minor hockey that push their kids probably half as hard as my dad pushed me. But my old man never talked down to me. It was never like, you did this, you're an idiot. It was, hey, man, like, you're doing this. It's not good. You're better than that. It's not like you suck. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like, I always felt incredibly supported. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's all you can do as a parent, because you got to support your kid. Listen, if your kid wants to be great in hockey, that's awesome. You support him in that. But let's say he doesn't, like, you're not going to have a very good relationship with your kid trying to make a hockey player out of him when he doesn't want to be there. So,
well, and I think one thing that I know with you and your father is, you guys are, he's your dad, you respect him, you listen to him, but you guys have always been friends. And I don't mean friends, some parents have a hard time, like, I'm the parent, I'm not a friend. I don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. I agree that you should be able to have a conversation, and I remember when I was young with my dad, and there was a couple things that flipped with him where it was like, we're building something. And I'm like, hey, Dad, what if we do it this way? What if we put this here? And he'd be like, yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah. And it was like one of those like, wow, he listened to me. You know what I mean? Moments. Yeah. But I had a lot of those, and I had a lot of conversation with my parents, not a dictatorship from them. And I think that was really important for me growing up is listening. And even at young ages with my kids, I try to listen to them.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
And there's times where I'm like, no, buddy, I was totally wrong. Yeah. 6 + 6 is not 13. It's 12. You're right. Like, or whatever it is. Right. But like, I think that's important. And building a relationship with the person, not the hockey player. You know what I mean? Treating your son, daughter like a person. Yeah. Getting to know them. And I think it's huge. And I mean, you're a testament to that. You and your dad have a great, your mom as well. But we're talking about psycho dads right now. No, I'm kidding. No, but you and your dad have a wicked relationship. And, and I think that's, it started at young ages for sure.
100%. Like I remember even when I was maybe like 13, 14, like being on the phone with them. And then someone would be like, who are you on the phone with? I was like, oh, that's my old man. Really? I thought that was like your buddy. I'm like, no, we are buddies. Like that's just he's my buddy. Like you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with my mom. Like I've never talked down to. Like it was always very much so, like you say, like just treating each other like humans, I guess, at the end of the day,
No, totally.
And it lets your kid think too, right? You tell your kid what to do all the time. Eventually he's gonna come to a point where he's gotta figure stuff out on his own. Like and he's gonna be lost all of a sudden because he's never had to do that? Like it's
for sure.
Good personal skills to have. Just you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally agree. The other thing too, I think is really important is, with you, I know your father had a son who loved hockey. I mean, you could have been on the ice 6 hours a day, 5-7 days a week. You know what I mean? Outsiders that look at that, like you're going extra sessions, you're doing extra skills, you're going extra practice here with this team, you're doing this. A lot of people be like, oh, he's crazy. Dad's crazy. He's driving all over town, all over the place to get his kid on the ice. Yeah. And I've had other kids like this, and obviously yourself, but other kids that recently that I'm like talking to other parents that are telling me that this dad's crazy because their kids are on the ice all the time. Mm-hmm. Like I know the kids. The kids love the game. Yeah. So if you came to see me when I was 13 years old, and even in high school, man, at 14 years old, like I was at the outdoor rink almost every single day after school. Almost every day. I'd come home, rip through homework, probably get a D on it, but I would run down to the rink, go play on the rink all night. So if anybody in that back then was normal, it's cool. It's cool. He's outside. He's playing. It's cool. But like if my dad had driven me to the rink every day, now my dad's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I look at it, I'm like, kid loves it, man.
Yeah.
Dad has the means and the money and the time to bring him to do this stuff. I know it sucks, like overall paying a lot of money for skills or extra ice or whatever it is, but the kid loves it, man.
Yeah. And what about all those drives to the rink with your kid too? Like how many parents don't have that bond with their kids who would kill like just to drive to the rink with their kids and talk about it before, talk about it after, like that's a lot of what I remember as well, especially when I was playing junior close to home and stuff, like just those conversations, like, you know what I mean? It brings you together. It's awesome. Like,
let me ask you this about that, because I think that's because some kids don't want that ride, right? That ride sucks because the whole way to the rink, dad's telling them what they should be doing on the ice, and the whole way home, dad's telling them what they messed up on the ice and what they should have done better, what they didn't. So that ride sucks, right? Why was your ride good? Why was your ride good to the rink and away from the rink? Like what? And man, let's be honest. Obviously, you got ragged on a couple times. Like obviously, you played like crap a couple times, and you got
no bad games.
But like, yeah, what were those rides to the rink and away from the rink like? I know you guys talked hockey and shop, but I'm sure sometimes it was just random stuff.
Yeah, and there was. Especially with my old man, because we spent a lot of time together. Everything was just related back to life. Like it was just about so much more than hockey. Like, it was, I don't know. It's just, we talked about hockey because we both loved hockey. Like even today, like I probably talk to my old man every day on the phone. Like, and it's about hockey. It's about life. It's about whatever. But, it was just, there was obviously, like you say, there's tough moments, but I think it helped with us because at such a young age, he instilled in me like work ethic. Like it's not okay to go there and half-ass it. Like you're going there and you need to respect that this is my time. This is your mom's time. This is our money. Like you're going there and we think you love this but you need to work hard. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, let's say I have a bad practice. Okay. It's because I sucked. I bobbled a couple pucks, but as long as I was working hard, like we got over the arguments pretty young. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, well, you worked hard today, and then we talk about something else. You know what I mean? Whether it was hockey related or not, but it wasn't too tense like that. And even it's funny now I think about it. We can kind of relate it more to life after hockey, but just even if let's say me and the old man are in a huge argument back when I played about hockey, like we're going at it back and forth. It's not as bad as it sounds because I love hockey. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not arguing about paying a bill. I'm arguing about something that I love, and we both are just passionate about it. And I think it used, like when I played at university, I lived at home, and me and my stepdad would get into it sometimes. And I think it drove my mom nuts. But like me and Tim would be like, this is fine. Like we're like, whatever, we're heated right now, but I don't hate him because he disagrees with me. We're just having a conversation. So, I guess back to your point, like, I kind of got off track there.
No, that's good, man.
But
no, that's quality time though, right? And
100,
if it's done the right way,
and I enjoy like getting kind of back to that, like me and Tim arguing after a game at Western. It's still quality time, man. Like I loved having those debates. Like I learned a lot in those times because there's times when I'd come home and I'd be bitching about something and he'd be like, "Listen, you're being an idiot." Like, you know what I mean? And we like he wouldn't say it like that, but we would go back and forth and I'd be like, I see his point of view. I see the coach's point of view. I just learned, like, you know what I mean? And I'm happy to do it. Like,
So. No, it's cool. No, I know it's great, man. I think it's so important to have those relationships, right? But they're cultivated at young ages.
Yeah.
It's hard to just flip it on at 13 years old and say, I want to have a good relationship with my son or my daughter. It's got to be started young and the right way, right? The other thing I want to talk about though too is, so you get it in a Bantam, you get cut, and you know, kind of like you were saying, like you kind of got a little swagger to you. You're like, I'm AAA, played AAA since for the last 3-4 years. I'm just going to punch my ticket to the OHL. You kind of like, you know, you're on that trajectory. You're doing well. And as you mentioned, maybe you're start on the first line with the boys, and then you're on the second line, and then you're on the third line, and up the second line, back to third line. But you kind of drop it a little bit. Maybe, you know, and that's kind of right around the time that you and I met. You were doing one of our programs. Like kind of, I've been working with you a little bit on the ice with a big group and kind of liked you because you're a personable kid and your dad was a beauty, like good guy and easy to talk to and stuff like that. So I got to know you a little bit. You get cut. What was it like, you know, if you can recall kind of what was it like for you getting cut after being on the AAA team for 4 or 5 years? Because a lot of kids experience this, whether it's AA, A, AAA, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, man, you get cut. And it's like, whoa. Like,
it was devastating for sure. I think it really benefited me, my ego, realizing like, okay, it was a big shot to my ego. Like I just remember a small example, something stupid. I remember being at school, and the girl that I liked at school, she said to me, she goes like, "I heard you got cut from the Chiefs, eh?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Ouch." I go, "Okay, really?" You know what I mean? And like at that age, like that stings. You know what I mean? So, but it kind of taught me like, hey, like, who cares? Like you need to learn to deal with this, and you need to grow from it. And yeah, it was that's what my old man always says. Like, that was the best thing Jeff Van Fleet ever did for your hockey career, was cut you. Like,
Yeah.
Because at that time, like I said, I thought I was just the goal scorer. You know what I mean? And let's face it, if you're on the third line and you're a goal scorer, you're probably not doing much. You're not you're not helping your team. You know what I mean? I needed to learn how to. And at that time, they say, it was like other kids hitting the growth spurt. Oh, you're too small. That's a nice way of saying you're not good enough. Because there's small guys that play. You know what I mean? If you're good enough, it doesn't matter your height, you're playing. Yeah. So it was it was a huge major learning curve, and I'm thankful that it happened, because it really I don't think I would have had the success later that I had, just because it gave me an experience at a young age too of dealing with adversity, and I kind of got lucky just with kind of my dad's guidance. Like, he was a big on turning everything into motivation. Like, let's say between grade 6 and 7, I got called fat because I was a little fat kid. I lost 30 pounds between grade 6 and 7. Like, it just like, I just kind of got used to being like, okay, this is seen as a negative, turn it into a positive. And so it was just another good experience for me to go through at a young age. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was a chubby kid as well, by the way. Yeah. So I went through that as well, like wearing a shirt to go swimming, and being called like boobies. And stuff like that. Yeah. I
had the boobs before the girls did. That's how I was.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was great. It was really good. And
not as cool when guys have it.
No, it's not that cool. It's not that cool. But then there's a lot of young kids that go through this, right? You got whatever it is, and I remember like talking to my mom, being like, "Mom, like I'm fat," and I'm sure you did the same thing, right? And my mom was like always supportive, like, "No, you're not.
My mom was the same way.
You're just solid boy,
You're strong."
Yeah, and but it definitely and I always had a lot of support of my parents, but those types of things, and I know everyone's like against shaming, like, he's not fat, he's just like, no, I was fat, I was chunky, like that's fine. Yeah. But that forced me to never want to be that again. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And not because I've got a lot of buddies that are fat, and a lot of people I know, I don't care. It's just, for me personally, that was a good kind of turning point in my life where I'm like, I want to be a little more fit, and then when I got fit, I was like, I'm never going back. And then, trust me, there's times where I fall off of fitness, and I have my months of just, being an idiot or whatever. But for the most part, I don't, that's something that's always in the back of my head. I always have that chunky kid in the back of my head. Yeah,
I'm the same way, for sure. Yeah. And it's like, at the time it was tough for me to hear as a kid,
it's not easy.
But you know what? It taught me that, listen, you have a problem, and like, they're not calling you, like, let's say they called me redheaded. Well, I can't really help that. You know what I mean? But like, listen, that's kind of, I feel like that's what more so my dad than my mom. My mom, like, same as yours, like, very supportive. But it was like, listen, like, it's something you're in control of. Like, yeah, okay, this is great. This is a problem, but you're in control of it. So just be aware of that. You know what I mean? And if it bothers you that much, you can fix it. Like, you can. It's not that big of a deal.
No, for sure. Now, how was your dad when you got cut? And I want to talk about this a little bit because I'm a father. I think I have an idea how I'd handle it, but I know deep down inside I'd be torn. I'd be so probably angry. I'd probably be maybe a little disappointed. Like, not my son, just at the situation. But I'd be probably pissed about it. But I feel like I externally wouldn't do that, like, wouldn't throw that on my kid. Yeah. But how did your dad kind of deal with it, or how do you approach it with you?
I actually remember that night. It was at this rink actually when I got cut, and I remember going into the room, and I kind of had a feeling it was going to happen, and I remember thinking, oh man, the old man's going to lose his shit. This could be game on.
You're like, okay, sounds good, coach. I'll see you later.
And I remember my old man just shook coach's hand, said thanks for everything, whatever. And he told my mom, he's like, he'll come home with me. And I went home with him, and he was calm. Like, he knew it was going to happen. You know what I mean? He could see the writing on the wall. And he just said, listen, he says, basically, there's nothing I'm going to tell you right now. It's going to make you feel better, but just know, like, this isn't the end of the world. Like, you know what I mean? And he says, we're going to grow from this. And that's kind of the language that he used too, right? Where I was like, I felt like I had him with me to go through. It wasn't like, well, you're on your own now. Like, you sucked. I give you everything and whatever. Like, it was, and my mom was the exact same way. They were just beyond supportive. And that's when I think that's when, like, I'd say my junior career, I'd be known for my work ethic. And I think that's when it really kicked in, because it was like, listen, you don't have the natural ability anymore. Like, you got to put in the work. And that's when things really kicked off, I think, for myself.
No, I totally agree. And one thing I remember about that time is I remember you coming in and let's say we skated on, I don't know, a Monday, and then the following Monday we skated, I don't know the days, but I remember you coming in after. I knew you had tryouts. It was right around the tryout time or whatever, and you came in, and I don't know if you approached me or I approached you and like, hey, how'd it go? How'd tryouts go or whatever? And like, I got cut. And I remember just saying to you, okay, well, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you kind of looked at me like, I don't know, like, well, what are you going to do? Like, you going to sit and sulk about it, or are you going to like, make that team again next year, you know? And I give you full credit for this, because you're right. I think from that point on, that's when we first started to get to know each other. But from that point on, I mean, you worked. Yeah. And you were like, when I think back at Mitch Brooks at that point, you're like kind of a soft, skilled little hands guy, perimeter a little bit, to now like, you know, bulldozing goaltenders, getting in guys' faces, like just totally different player from what you were at that point. But I think it was a good kick in the pants for you to say, hey, listen, buddy, like, you're not going to make it on just your sweet little hands in Adam or Pee Wee, right?
For sure.
And again, like, your dad was on board, you know, you were getting on board. And another thing I want to discuss that was in your life a little bit around that time too is MMA and guys like, you know, you had a group of guys around you, and I want you to talk about them a little bit, but you know, your dad kind of had some buddies and kind of knew some people that got you into, like, and a lot of kids do karate or do jiu-jitsu or do boxing, and for you it was more in that MMA style, right? Yeah. And just kind of learning how to protect yourself, learning how to throw a punch, learning how to grapple, learning how to just, and not to go fight, but just for exercise, for life. And I give your dad a lot of credit, and your mom a lot of credit for doing that. But what was that like, and what kind of influences were they in your life?
Yeah, so that was like, that's a surreal experience really for myself. Actually, when I was a kid, it all started because when I was a kid, like, I'd sleep over at my old man's every other weekend. And I remember like Saturday nights, before we go to bed, we'd watch Rocky IV from the training montage until his fight, you know, with the Russian. Yeah. And we'd watch that, and I was like telling the old man, like, I want to get into that. Like, that's really cool, you know. And so he looked around, and he had a buddy who knew of Sean Tompkins, and Sean has since passed. But so we started going. It was Team Tompkins at the time, and when we started going, I was 9 years old, and there'd be 4 people in a class, and that's just kind of when. Mark Hominick and Sam Stout, they were coming on, you know what I mean? And so yeah, they started progressing, and next thing you know, like, those guys are in the UFC, and like that's a big deal at that time.
Yeah.
It was a big deal because obviously it's really cool to know someone in the UFC, but at that time, like, knowing Canadians that were in the UFC, like, that was huge too. And Sean actually ended up kind of getting, I don't know the MMA terms, but essentially got like recruited to go to Vegas, and he was training Randy Couture, who was a UFC champion at multiple weight classes. You know what I mean? Like, this was a big deal, and it was just huge for me just to be around that work ethic. Like I just remember seeing Mark, like, when Mark's getting ready for a fight, like his warm-up blazer is nuts. Like, like, when we first seen him, so it worked out. The first week that I went there, I was partnering up with another kid there, and he had been there for a while. He was a good little fighter. He actually did fights and stuff. And he said, there's fights this weekend. So they host these smoker shows at the gym. So that weekend we went and watched, and there's kickboxing fights, and Mark was reffing. And I remember, like, Mark's a very timid guy. Like, if you talk to Mark right now, like
a sweetheart, like, a good guy. Yeah,
very,
really good guy.
Very, very.
And for those who don't know, they own Adrenaline Gym, which is a kind of a big MMA hotspot here in London, Ontario. Yeah. And man, they've obviously, those two guys, Sam Stout and Mark Hominick, have done an unreal job in the UFC themselves. But now they're training, and they've got, you know, kind of some guys coming in and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I remember we first seen him, and like, we asked, like, my buddy, like, is this guy soft? Like, what's the deal? They're like, no. That guy's the real deal. So next thing you know, we start seeing him fight, and he call him the Machine for a reason. Like, you know what I mean? And just his work ethic was unbelievable. And like, the way that guy battles, man, is you like,
he's not a big guy.
No.
Like, if you saw him at a bar and he bumped your shoulder and you're a big dude, you'd probably look at him and be like, okay. And this guy would mop the floor with you. Like, he's got that no give up mentality, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
I remember actually, it's funny we bring this up at this time when I got cut. So I remember I told him like I got cut and I said it was because I was too small. And so Mark, like you say, he's not a big guy. He used to fight at 145. I remember he's getting ready for one of his fights and he's in the back cage at the old gym there. And he's sparring with this like big black guy. Like I remember seeing Mark in there with him, and I was a young kid at the time. And before they started going, like I was a little scared for Mark. Like I was like as a kid, like you're about to see two grown men go at it. Like it's a little intimidating.
And one's big and jacked, right? Like,
exactly. And the other one's your little buddy. Like And so I remember being like pretty intimidated, and like Mark put the boots to this guy.
Really?
Like Mark worked him. Like you can tell by the guy's body language at the start. Like he was thinking the same thing. He's like, I'm big guy, whatever. And Mark dismantled this guy. And I remember I was leaving and Mark came running from the back of the gym to me and he just grabbed me and he said, see that, Mitchy? He says, size don't matter. Don't worry about that. And I was just
that's cool.
I was just like, wow, that's cool. And just seeing his mentality, man, like, and then he fought Jose Aldo, who was very well known.
Yeah, huge. Yeah.
So he fought him for a title. And I remember my buddy showed me, he's like, this is the guy that Mark's going to fight. And we're watching videos. And I was like, again, like scared for Mark. This guy hadn't lost in 10 years. Like this guy, like he would, I remember seeing videos and they showed the guys after the next day they can't walk because his big thing was leg kicks and their legs are black and blue. I'm like, Mark's going to fight this guy. You know what I mean? And Mark didn't win, but Mark had a hell of a 5-round fight. 5 rounds.
That's crazy.
5 rounds. And at the end of the fight, Mark was on top of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for the whole last round, Mark was beating him up. You know what I mean? And it was just experiencing that and being like, okay, I seen all Mark's work in the gym. I seen when Mark lost. You know what I mean? He lost a couple in the row and you're thinking, is Mark done here? But he just kept on his path. He was always very sure of himself and he let his work ethic guide him. You know what I mean? And I have nothing but admiration and respect for those guys. And it was, like you say, it was phenomenal to be around at that age, just seeing that, just because it was just so relatable. You know what I mean? Being like, okay, he's been in some holes and he had to dig his own way out of it. Like you just see it firsthand. Yeah, it was an honor to be around those guys.
And some cool mentorship there, right? Even just the little things like that, like you leave the gym. Hey man, size doesn't matter. You know, and just that stuff to be around is unbelievable.
And it's cool just because like Sean, for example, like when you first see Sean, man, like Sean's a badass looking dude. Like Sean can make you cry with a look. Like, you know what I mean? But I remember my mom at first being a little timid, you know, like a 9-year-old son going around there and stuff. But after talking to him, she was just completely at ease. Like those guys were the biggest hearts, and like the community that they have at that gym is something else. Like they'll do anything for each other. And I remember being as a kid, like at home, this is kind of something cool for me. They brought home a UFC towel for me. Like when you see the guys in between rounds getting rubbed with the towel, they brought that home for me. And like they're always bringing me stuff like that. Like who am I? I'm just a little punk kid there. You know what I mean? But they're thinking of me and bringing stuff home. Like it was cool, man.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, that's great. So kind of going through all that stuff, getting cut, everything like that, you end up bouncing back from it and end up making the team again and end up playing AAA again to finish out. Go undrafted to the OHL, which is fine, but then you get get an opportunity. And again, just working your tail off, playing hard. And you got to that crossroads at 16 where you're like, hey, do I go play major midget or do I go play junior? And you got an opportunity to play junior D, which actually Josh Gratton played junior D as well. There you go. Yeah. But it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a development league. It was like filled with 20-year-olds and kind of farm boys, like to party a bit, good at hockey. And, you know, and I remember having this conversation with you and your father about like, man, what should I do? And I said, well, if you want to play in the OHL, then go play against these old farm boys. Like just, you know, go do that. You're going to get pushed around. You're going to bounce around. You're going to get hit. It's going to be a bit of a jungle, but it'll give you an opportunity to kind of get your feet wet. And I remember telling you, don't get sucked down the rabbit holes. And not that they're bad. These guys are just on different paths. You want to go play somewhere, like go there, be respectful, be a good teammate, be a good guy, go ahead and party with them a little bit, but just don't get stuck kind of playing junior D for 4 years. You know what I mean? And obviously you can talk a little bit about that junior D year because I'm sure it was a bit of a, well, what am I doing
That was an eye opener for sure.
Yeah.
I remember, so first of all, I got cut again, like from St. Thomas Stars, and that seemed like the end of the world, and then ended up in Tempsford. And this is a funny story. This is junior D for you. So I go to my first ever junior D practice tryout, whatever you want to call it. Boys are in the room. First of all, you got guys like washing your visor, like say you spray or something like that.
So
they're just
spraying to wash your visor off. Yeah.
These guys are just putting it under the sink, like washing it with water and stuff, whatever. You're kind of like, well, that's whatever. And then I look in
spitting on it.
Yeah. I look in Buddy's pouring something into his water bottle. It's a leading score. Buddy's pouring something in his water bottle. Not really thinking anything of it. And then I go take a leak. So I go to walk past his bag. He's pouring beer into his water bottle to take out to the bench. I'm not kidding. This guy is the leading scorer of the league, not of the team, of the league. Thinking, so the stories are true here, eh, boys? Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I actually got super lucky there. So first of all, I remember a bunch of people told me, like, don't play for Tempsford. They only play their 20-year-olds. Don't play there. You're like, I remember people telling my dad, like, you're fucking your kid over. Like, don't let him play there. I remember my old man saying, listen, we're going to play there, and you're not going to play like a 16-year-old. Like, play like a 20-year-old. You know what I mean? And so that was a good experience too. But I got very, very lucky with Tempsford because, so Tempsford at the time, there was no Dorchester. Now it's Junior C and there's Dorchester. So they would get all the guys from Western.
Oh, okay.
So honestly, I was probably the smartest team I've ever played on. Like, it was all Western guys. And those guys, there was two guys in particular, a captain, Ethan Doan, and then my centerman, Levine was his name. They really took me under their wing. Like, and they were all the guys in that team, man. Like, oh man, they were awesome. Like, and they looked out for me and they were just incredible. I can't say enough good things about them. For sure, there was stuff going on that they were doing that I didn't want to take part of, but there was no pressure at all, and they were just so supportive. And I remember, like, I played with this guy. I couldn't even tell you his real name, Blazer. He was our left winger, and I called him Paul Bunyan because he was just this huge, huge guy. And I remember one time I got hit pretty good in the game, and later in that game, like, that guy did not finish the game. The guy that hit me, like, he smoked him, and it was just like I felt very looked after, and they were very good like that to me. And I remember one of them telling me, being like, "Hey, we were out with Mountain Bridges last night, and they're like, does everyone hate that Mitch Brooks guy? Blah 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 blah." And our captain goes, "Everybody loves him." I was just like, that felt good for me to hear, but it was like, yeah, it's okay to be hated by the other team. You should be, but like, just goes back to the point of, like, those guys were just awesome too.
Yeah.
Just so good.
Oh, it's cool. And during that year, so any young guy who's playing junior hockey for the most part or up, you're gonna have a rookie party. You're gonna have kind of going through that experience, and this is where we'll kind of get into that drinking at a rookie party for the most part. And you know, parents may want to block your ears here, but there's gonna be potentially a little bit of drinking or some kind of thing like that. You know what I mean? It usually involves alcohol or, you know, for the most part, but and there's games and stuff, and it's kind of, now it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a little bit of a team party basically. Yep. But I remember you being nervous about that because you don't drink, and you never have touched it. And, you know, now you're like 16 years old and you're going to be going to your first rookie party. Mm-hmm. What was that whole experience like? And what did you end up doing to kind of mitigate that whole pressure at the point of the party? Because I remember you and I had the conversation about beforehand. I don't know if you recall or not, but it was, you know, man, I'm going to this rookie party. What do I do? And, you know, I gave you some advice, but because it's always it's really hard to say no at that moment. You know, when you're at the party and they got a beer in front of you or they got, you know, a shot or whatever, and it's hard to say no. So how did you kind of mitigate that? And what did you do to kind of get around that a little bit and still had a blast at the rookie party, but kind of not got away, but just, were able to do what you wanted to do. Yeah.
So like I said, there was great veteran guys. So I just told them, like, listen, I don't drink. Like, it's whatever. And there's a little bit of, like, there's a background story to that people overplay. Like, they think it's because of my family history with alcohol, but I don't drink because I remember when I was, let's say, more so minor hockey, even in a junior, I guess, as well, like, when people started drinking, okay, they were working and they had money to pay for their alcohol. I didn't work. My parents let me, like, I worked a little bit on the Jenner farms, made a little bit of cash here and there, but for the most part, my parents let me just focus on hockey. You know what I mean? And that doesn't make money. Like, that costs money. So it'd be pretty disrespectful of me to say, hey, listen, I know you're paying for my hockey right now, and I don't have to work, but can I have a little bit of extra money for booze? And I might fuck all this up when I drink. Like, I might do something stupid. You know what I mean? And so I just was like, that just doesn't make sense for me to do that. So, and then I just knew in my mind, like, it's very certain to myself, like, listen, I'm not going to drink. I remember you telling me, like, listen, tell an older guy and it'll more than likely be okay. But like, worst case scenario, like, I was ready to fight someone. Like, if they're going to make me drink, like, I was ready to swing and be like, no, like, it ain't going to happen. Like, we can have a good time here or we can ruin the time. But it never even came close to that. Like, guys were just very supportive, being like, hey, he doesn't drink. It's not a big deal. Like, it's
awesome though. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and that's another thing where it just makes you feel more welcome too. And yeah, like, I don't have anything bad to say about those guys on that junior beat. They were just awesome. And just goes to your point of just talking to your older guys, because they're humans too. They were not long ago, they're in the same shoes you were in. You know what I mean? So they get it.
And to me, it's that communication piece too, though, right? You go to them a week before or whatever. A couple of the vets that are good guys. Be like, listen, man, like, I don't drink. I don't want to drink. I'm not going to drink. Yeah. I just want to let you know, if you got my back on this, I'll do shots of water, shots of milk, shots of chocolate milk, shots of syrup, whatever you want, right? But like, I'm not going to have alcohol. And and I think that goes a long way in that communication piece. But that makes your experience a lot better. For sure. Where some kids get worried about that, they're scared about it. They don't want to say anything, and then they're stuck in one when they get there, and now they're trying to get out of it by, you know what I mean? Maybe not, and then it turns into a bit of a gong show, right? Yeah.
It's so funny. My mom and I have talked about this. Like, when, let's say someone offers me a drink or something, I say no, and somehow it comes up, oh, you don't drink. It's like, oh, why don't you drink? You know what I mean? Where it's really like,
so weird.
It's like, let's say, I always say this to people, just as maybe a bit of a silly example. So let's say I offered you right now, I said, like, for example, why do you drink? Like, you probably drink to have a good
honestly
time.
It's probably it's social, right? Yeah, it's probably more social than anything. Yeah.
And some people like it, loosens them up, makes them feel good, whatever. Okay. So let's say you've never done cocaine before. And I say, Blazer, you want some cocaine? And you're like, no, I don't do cocaine. Oh, you don't do cocaine? Like, what do you mean? Like, here, I'll chalk you up a line. You can do it. It's going to make you feel good, blah, blah, blah. You're like, well, it's not healthy for you. Like, that's not a good decision. Like, mine's just on a lower scale, but it's the same thing. It's just,
well, the kicker there too, though, is that like alcohol is so mainstream. It's so involved in everything, right? Where Coke, like, you went to 100 people and said, hey, I'll bump you a line, or I'll get you a line of Coke. And be like, are you insane? Like, what are you talking about, right? Yeah. Whereas alcohol, it's like, it's so normal. So it almost, the norm is to have drinks. Yeah. The not norm is to not have drinks. So for you to say, like, I'm not drinking, a lot of people are like, man, you play junior, you play college, went to Western, like, what, you never had a beer? Like, no, I never had a beer. Yeah. Which that is so not normal. And not saying it's good. I think it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. And I've gone times, like, periods without drinking and stuff like that. It's not, but it is a social thing. Yeah.
But that's all it is. It's just the social aspect of it. Like, it's still, it's the same risk. You know what I mean? Like, listen, like, people have told me alcohol has never made a man, but it's ruined a bunch. It's the same thing with cocaine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's why, for me, for someone who's never taken a substance, like, I don't see the difference in that. Sure. Society tells you, just because society tells you, you're not looking at the actual facts of it all. You're just looking at what's a societal norm.
100%. That's exactly, yeah, for sure. And then you're right. Like, I don't think they're both, they're both drugs. They're both not good for you. They're both, not going to.
There's a risk. Essentially, there's a risk in both of them, and it's just a risk I don't want to take. So that's it. And it's funny actually now. So when you're younger, and you say you don't drink, it's like, oh, well, here, just try. You know what I mean? Blah blah blah. When you're older, like, I'm 25 now, I say I don't drink. People, oh, okay. They assume you got a problem. Yeah. They assume you're a recovered alcoholic or something. So it's funny to see that.
That is.
People have asked me, like, oh, did something happen? I'm like, no, I just don't drink. Like, it's funny to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. So then coming out of junior D, you end up, getting an opportunity to play some junior B, obviously. And in that time, you get, invited to an OHL camp as a walk-on. Mm-hmm. What was that first experience like? Because again, these are kind of backdoor ways into stuff. Yeah. And, I know that, like a lot of guys, you wanted to play in the O if you could. And if you had an opportunity to play, that was one thing that you wanted to do. But what was that experience like going to Oshawa and kind of getting an opportunity to go there as a walk-on and try out?
That was just really cool for me, just because it kind of, like, I remember just working so hard to get that opportunity. And I remember at the end of the year in Tempsford, I remember I couldn't play. I was hurt. I had a concussion at the time, so I couldn't even go to the game. And my coach texted me. He said, Oshawa was here to see you tonight. And I was like, wow, man. Like they legit came specifically for me just to come and see that game. Like, I was pretty pumped about that, because the year before I couldn't beg to get in an OHL spot, you know? So that was pretty cool. And then it worked out that it was Oshawa, and my family and Boone Jenner's family are really close, so that was kind of a little bit comforting for me to go somewhere where
And Boone was still there, right?
he was still there, yeah. And so, now you're really making me think about this, but it was definitely very exciting to go there, very nerve wracking, and probably my best Oshawa story. This was pretty cool.
Well, because I want to tell a story, but you're going there. You're a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You're playing an energy role in junior D, like putting up some numbers for a 16-year-old, but not crazy. And then playing energy, getting a couple tilts, playing hard. You go to Oshawa, like what's your mindset going in there? Like I got to play hard. I got to get in guys' faces. I got to I got to bump the golie a bit. I got to go to the net. I got to play, so
100%.
that's what you want to do. That's what you want to showcase, right? So then.
Absolutely. Like I knew I came out of junior D. I wasn't expecting to battle Booner and Scotty Lawton for
the top 3 spots.
Exactly. Yeah. So I knew there's going to be different aspects of the game that I'm gonna have to showcase here. And I remember that was a pretty wild camp. So when we went there, I don't think at the time they had a couple bad apples in their dressing room. And that was the most competitive inter-squad games I've ever been a part of. And it wasn't the guys trying to make the team. Like it was the vets. Like they were going hard and like chirping. Like you would have thought like this was the rival. Like really? It was. And I remember coming from my background, right? Like it was like, holy smokes. These are guys who are good hockey players, better than I've ever played with, and they're going full bore.
Yeah,
like it's legit. And I remember after one of the games, it's getting later into the camp, and DJ Smith actually was the coach there. And is he in Ottawa now? Is that where he is?
Head coach in Ottawa. Yeah.
So he's an intense fella.
Yeah.
When he walks in a room, you know what I mean. He came into the room and he just told us. He said, "Listen, this camp has been intense, and there's a problem though. It's the vets leading this. Usually, it's the guys trying to make the team that are pushing the pace here, trying to make some noise. You know what I mean? So, we have no problem with going to other camps to pick people like this. You guys either got to pick it up or whatever. So he's basically telling you show us something. Yeah. I knew what he was saying, And so sure as shit, go out for the next period, and there's this big defenseman, and he's out there and he's asking guys to go. And I remember I was sitting next to Booner on the bench. Booner goes, "Brooks, you want to make the team? You go fight that guy right now." And Boone was the captain at the time. He's my buddy, and I trusted him. You know what I mean? We went to hot yoga together. Like we worked out together. Like I trusted him. So I was like, okay. So I remember they had a breakout, and that defenseman was way behind the play, and the play was up ice. I jumped the boards and went literally the opposite direction of the puck. It just went right over to that guy. And we shattered him, and we went at it, and it was a good tilt. Luckily for me, I fighting bigger guys was kind of my thing, just because you don't want to lose to a smaller guy. Like I always fight the bigger guys, But I could save myself, A, because I had a little bit of background in fighting, and B, I'm a lefty, so that's
catch him by surprise.
Exactly,
in the first couple, right?
Exactly. You know what I mean? If I had to fight him 3 times, he'd probably beat me, but the first time I might catch him off there. So we went at it, and we had a good tilt, and I remember people were losing it. Like for the rest of that period, anytime I went on the ice, both teams were coming up to me, tapping my pads, being like, "That was sick.
That's pretty cool.
That was sick," And then so we go back in between the room between periods, and the coach, he was a scout, and he was he was a spaz. He was losing it. He's just saying how sick that was, and if he wants to go round 2, you go round 2. If he wants to go round 3, you go round 3. And I'm just like, boys, okay, I'm not here for this reason. I'm just showing you, I'm not here to fight. I'm just showing you, this is what I'm showing you. Listen, I'm here. You know what I mean? And then I remember next period I go out, and their fighter is calling my name. And I had gone to see their games before, because like I said, we're buddies with Banner, and we used to go watch him play, and I'm like, I'm not fighting this guy. You know what I mean?
No way.
But it turns out he was just trying to set up for me to fight that guy again. So anyway, he tries to, so we lose the face-off. It's in the old zone, goes behind the net, puck breaks out. So I'm skating up the ice, and someone grabs me from behind and says, "Let's go." And I said again, and I turned around before I even shed my mitts. It's that big guy again, and he's just wailing at me. And I can't, I don't even have my gloves off. So finally I got my gloves off. I catch him with a lucky one, and we both go down. So whatever, I go to the room, I get cleaned up, I had a cut on my head, come back to the bench, and they say, "You good to go?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good to go." I said, "Okay, go over." So I go to jump over the boards, and I put my hand on the boards, and my shoulder was brutally separated. I had no idea for that long a time, just adrenaline going. Yeah. And so that's kind of, at the end of that camp, DJ called me into the room and said, listen, we want you to rehab here. We want to get you in a couple of games and blah, 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 blah. But at that time, you're thinking like, you want to keep your eligibility. Yeah. And at the time I was starting school that week in Stratford. And I'm like, to be honest, I don't do too well with being away from home. So I was a little bit homesick. I'm like, I don't really want to hang out here for 2 weeks. Just do an hour of rehab a day. Like I was just a little immature and whatever. It ended up working out, but it probably wasn't the best decision. I said, listen, boys, I'm going to go home and come watch me in Stratford. If you're interested, let me know, sort of thing. But yeah, it was cool, like getting in that fight and just seeing the reaction from the boys. Like it's a quick way to gain respect.
Well, and even nowadays, I know fighting's not a thing and it's not as big of a thing, I should say. But man, it's still like in a tryout or in a big game, in a game where scouts are at or something comes in, like it's still part of the game. Yeah. It still like shows that you're going to step in for, like, not going out and staging a fight or going out and looking for a fight, but someone calls you on or someone hits your goalie or someone, like just at least even showing up. Yeah. Just jumping in and even just getting the guy's face. You don't have to fight, just getting the guy's face. Like I think it's still a big part of the game. It's still a big part of being a teammate. And man, the boys love it. There's a lot of respect you earn instantly.
Yeah. If I ever got traded to a team, first thing I would do is fight for sure.
I was the same.
Boys would love you. And especially when you're trying out for a team as a smaller guy, it's like, okay, well, they notice that first. Okay, you're a little bit smaller. Well, he's got nuts. He went out there and fought. Like, okay, don't worry about his size anymore. You know what I mean? So I wasn't trying to make a point that I'm there to beat someone up. I'm there to show you, like, I'm willing to do stuff for you. Like when it comes down to if we got to block shots, I'm blocking shots. You know, I'm putting my body on the line for you. Is my point there, and especially it shows your teammates too. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty. If you get hit and a guy fights for you, like you love him. Yeah, you know what I mean. And it's whether he wins or loses, but it's just the respect that, hey man, like that kid cares about me. Like you know, like he's my brother. Like it's just
definitely. Now looking back on it now, would you have stayed in Oshawa? Like if hindsight's 2020, right? Like you ended up having a great run and obviously played a lot of great hockey, but would you now looking back on it? Because two things could have happened. You could have rehabbed, got into some games, and man, etched in a spot in the lineup and played in the O for 2-3 years, right? Yep. Or you could have played a couple of games, ruined your eligibility for NCAA, which at the time I think that was kind of on the radar a little bit, just maybe see what happens, and then never play in the O ever again. So like looking back on it, would you kind of redo that again? So you know what, I would have sucked it up and taken the homesickness and just rehabbed and see what happened.
I get asked this a lot, more so with like, would you go out to BC again if you could, just because the next year Stratford ended up winning it. So my theory with this is I hate hearing people say they regret something. Sure. Because I'm just like, dude, like, what do you mean? Like, the big thing that I noticed with that is guys who go to the OHL, I should have gone the college route. Or guys who go to college route, I should have gone the OHL route. No, you didn't. You would have found an excuse if you went the other route too. The grass is always greener. For me, I can't say that I regret that because Oshawa was really good, and I would have been in another lineup. That would have been tough. I'm sure I would have gained a bunch of great lessons from that as well, for sure. But when I went back to Stratty, like, I absolutely loved my time in Stratford. Like,
good.
It was unbelievable, and I don't regret a second of it. Like, for example, my mom sent me this thing the other day. She found this thing at home, and it was a bunch of clips that we had of us playing in Stratford. She goes, I was watching it, and it's a 6-minute clip. She goes, I had tears in my eyes. Like, it was something that we, as a family and as myself, I really developed a very strong love and passion for the game when I was there. So I can't say that, but it's probably not the answer you want to hear.
No, I like it. No, I think it's good. No, not at all. I think that's huge, man. I think I'm very much like that too. I was just having this conversation with my wife the other day. I'm like, I don't care if my buddies buy a new house or my neighbor gets a new car, or I really don't care. Hey man, that's awesome. Good for you. To me, the grass is green at my house. 100%. I like my house. I like my grass. Like, sure, I'd love to be a multimillionaire. I'd like to have a yacht. I'd like to, you know what I mean? Sure. But like, I don't care. Like, that's good for you. Awesome.
100%.
So whatever path I chose, like for instance, I'll get asked, well, do you wish that you would have kept playing pro? I love playing pro. Mm-hmm. I love that. I got to a crossroads where it was a year of a lockout. I was back here in London, didn't know anybody, was starting a business. I got to a crossroads where like, do I just keep pushing the business or do I go back and play? Yep. I chose to start this business. Well, I would have loved to go on and play. Maybe with the rule changes, I would have had more opportunity. Who knows, right? Yeah. But I don't I don't dwell on it. You know what I mean?
Because what good
So-
does it do you if you do dwell?
Yeah,
on
and
it?
I'm really happy with the decisions I've made. Some
for
weren't
sure.
perfect, some weren't great, but overall, like
For sure.
right. I'm happy with where I'm at or where things have gone. So I like the answer. I think there's no bad answers on this show, by the way.
That's a perfect show for me.
But I think that's huge. I think it's just like, no, man, like, yeah, sure, maybe I would have stayed there and maybe things would have been a little bit differently. But
Plus, they had a mem cup after that would have been
yeah,
nice,
they went on a little run. Yeah.
But no, honestly, yeah, I this is maybe, I don't know, like I'm a big believer in God, and I just believe that any path that I'm on, He's taken me on it, and I just trust it, and it hasn't led me wrong so far, so I'm just gonna keep believing it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's
oh,
kind of
for sure,
it is.
man. No, I don't want to keep you forever, but the one other situation I want to chat a little bit about. So and we talked about Penticton and Stratford, which obviously were unreal experiences, but you're playing Stratford again. The next year you get an opportunity to walk on with the London Knights and being around this area, watch a ton of London Knights games. You had buddies that played on the team.
Yeah.
Like, what was that whole experience like for you? And again, it was one that you were close to making that team.
Yeah.
And I think I told you this after I ended up talking to one of the assistant coaches that were there at the time, and kind of halfway through the year, and like, man, we should have kept that Brooksy kid. He would have been a good energy guy. We don't have a lot of like toughness and energy on our team or whatever. And I mean, whatever, hindsight's 2020. But what was that like trying out for your hometown OHL team and kind of getting into some inter squad games? And I think it was an exhibition game as well. You got
We
into,
had a
but
couple there. Yeah, that was really cool. I remember that was actually, you helped me get into that opportunity, because I remember thinking like I'm 19, like I'm too old to try out in the O again, but I had a great summer. Like I was honestly probably the best summer I've had as far as like just being focused. Like my fitness was awesome. Like I felt great. And I'm like, I kind of talked to you being like, do you think I have a shot at giving the OHL one more shake? You know what I mean? He said, yeah, sure. And you kind of got me hooked up with London. And for me, that was really cool just because we had season tickets growing up, you know what I mean? And we watched a ton of that. And yeah, it was wicked. And same sort of thing. I remember I got in a fight in that one too. And I remember my parents must have told my billets or something like that. And the billet said, what's he doing? Like, why is he fighting? Like, that's not really, like in Strat, I didn't fight, you know what I mean? Like maybe the odd scuffle, I was definitely played hard, but like I wouldn't fight for a shift, you know what I mean? And my mom, even my mom knew. She's just like, that's he's trying to make the team. Like I knew he was going to do it. She goes, I'm not pumped. And it was, actually, I remember the first day of camp, I remember walking out of our house, and I walked out the back door. My mom was already outside, and I just threw up right there. My mom didn't even hesitate. Like she knew, like I get nervous, and sometimes I do that. My mom didn't even hesitate. She just goes, "All right, I'll go make some toast because there goes my breakfast." Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was funny. But yeah, I remember that fight was a pretty cool story too. It was just that.
Wasn't it?
Do you
like,
remember? Was it the first game? That
it was one of the first. Yeah, and there was just kind of a lame first half of the game.
Yeah,
it was brutal,
very
nothing
dull.
going on,
Yeah.
and then I think they were trying to fire it up.
I remember you telling me, being like, Brooksy, like you're playing for the Hunters here. Like this is old school hockey. Like hit someone, do something. Like you know what I mean. And I remember in between periods, Brett Velichka, he's a great guy. He was on our team, and he said, "Boys, there's someone on the other team who wants to fight. Does anyone want to fight?" I said, yeah.
Was everyone just kind of like looking around?
Yeah.
Like?
I said, I'll go on. And I said, who is it? And he said, whoever it was, number or whatever. And the guy next to me whispers, goes, yo, that guy's fucking big. I'm like, honestly, for me going into a fight, I like that because it's like, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose to a big guy. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? So I just said, Welly, okay, tell him, just tell him to start and we'll get it over with right away. Because nothing worse than waiting it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to play like shit. Like,
yeah.
So we line up for the face-off, and I remember I wasn't even looking at the ref dropping the puck. I just heard him blow his whistle, and for some reason I thought, okay, drop the puck right now. So my gloves are off before the puck's even dropped. And I remember the ref, like, I looked over, and the ref looks back at me. He hasn't even dropped yet. I'm like, well, we're going to go, just so you know. So we went, and it was actually, do you know the name Devin Didiomedi? You ever heard that name?
No.
He's asked Grady about him. He'd have some good stories.
Okay.
He used to come out to our practices in Stratty, and we worked on fighting and stuff.
Okay.
And he told me, he says, this is what you want to do as a lefty. And he just kind of showed me, he said, grab both his arms, start swinging with your right first. And he said, at some point, switch off and grab your left hand and then grab that guy's arm. So now you got his right arm and you got a direct path. Like he's defenseless essentially when you're a lefty, you know what I mean? And so did that, got lucky. Like, he was quite a bit bigger than me. I remember squaring up with him being like, I got a long reach up north here. And luckily I got that and started feeding him with the lefts, and it got broke up or whatever. And then I think Bobo was reffing it. Do you know who I mean by him?
Yeah.
I remember like stretching for the next game, and I was stretching out at the red line, and Bobo came up to me and like bear hugged me and was like, that was awesome. Like, I'm in the coach's room telling him that was so sick, blah, blah, blah. And like,
That's good.
that was pretty cool. But another thing too, like later in that, you got to separate yourself too, right? So I remember as that went along, a couple other guys fought, and I'm like, well, I'm even with those guys.
Yeah.
So I remember just going up and down that bench saying, boys, like, I need one more fight. Is anyone willing to go? But I was trying to be as like non-intimidating as possible, because I'm not trying to say I'm a big tough guy.
Sure.
I'm just saying, like, someone come out with me. Let's just go. Like this is gonna be good for you. It's gonna be good for me. Like you know what I mean. Didn't end up getting the second fight, but I think kind of word got around that I did that too, and that helped out. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of always going the extra mile, I guess, is the lesson there.
Well, and I know it sounds like for some people listening to this would be like, oh man, this is barbaric, like as if you would do this, right? But I think at the end of the day, man, it's showing that it's a very competitive sport. It's a sport where, you know, testosterone flies. You got guys that, you know, are guys, and we're not that smart sometimes. But at the end of the day, you want to know that you got guys have balls. The guys are going to play hard. The guys aren't afraid. And that's the biggest thing, man, is I think that, you know, by doing that or going up and down a bench and saying, oh, hey, just give me one, you know what? Yeah, it's old school maybe a little bit, but at the end of the day, like you're not afraid, because the guy that's a little bit scared is not going to do that.
No.
Right? So you know that, yeah, you're going to probably go down and block a shot at the end of the game. You're probably going to go down and take a hit in the corner to make a play to get the puck out. Like, it all translates into that. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying kids have to go out and pick fights with people, but you can show this as well by being a good teammate, by finishing your hits, by working your tail off. 100%. You know what I mean? But
there's
the fast way to do it, honestly, like, is to get into a fight. Like,
and if you're out of camp, I think that's what you got to do. And there'd be guys, let's say someone from who I played in junior B. Let's say, like, there's a couple guys in Elmira would be like, Brooksy's on here talking about fighting. Are you kidding me? Like, I asked that guy to fight all the time. You wouldn't go. There's different ways you got to show. There's different roles that you play where you have to act as a different player. So when I was in Stratford, I got jumped a few times. I wasn't going to fight. I was leading scorer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my way helping my team there, you're okay. I'm going to piss you off till you jump me, and then we're going to have a 7-minute power play because you can't jump guys. Or I remember in our second last year, there was this tough guy on Kitchener, and everyone was afraid of him. Like, our tough guy would even say, stay away from Clampett. Fuck him. I'll go right at him. Like, he's a loose cannon. I hope he does swing at me, because we're going to get a power play. And I ended his career. I remember he hit me like really bad, and there was no call. And then I went to hit him, and then I folded right in half, and he went over me. And I knew he was going to be coming at me, and I was like, I'm just going to suck him in here. And he speared me in the nuts real hard. And that ended like playoffs. That was over. He got suspended, and we won the series. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not just fighting. Like, I'm not a tough guy. Like, I'm not going in there being like, hey, I'm the best fighter ever. I'm just saying whatever I can do to help this team win is what I'll do. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and I hope everyone on my team loves me, and I hope everyone on that other team absolutely despises me. Like, that's the name of the game. It's the name of the game. You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
well, and especially when you're playing that kind of role. I know for me personally, I was more into a game when I was in a game, when I had games within the game, when I was getting it from other guys, I was giving it to other guys, I was battling, I was competing. There was a couple guys on that team I despised, you know, so you're going at them a little harder. It got me way more into a game for sure, you know. And I think you bring up a good point. I think depending on what type of role you play, because in a junior B loop, you're the leading scorer, you're a top 3 guy, you got to be there for the power play and stuff like that.
You get kicked out of the game for fighting,
you're jumping that next level. Okay, you're not a top 6 guy anymore. So now you got to try to prove yourself. You know, and if you're a super skilled player and you've got, you know, crazy amount of ability to score goals at the next level, then showcase that. You're not going to be going there trying to fight, but
you
know,
I think at the end of the day, it's about helping your team. So if you're helping your team by getting 2 goals a game, that's great. Go out and do that. But regardless, for me, I just always wanted to make sure I was maximizing whatever. Like, 'cause by the end, I didn't have much skill at all. You know what I mean? So you gotta, but you still want to help your team. So you got to find a way to do that. So
no, for sure. Oh, definitely, man. And then I guess, you know, kind of Western obviously was unbelievable. You know, the one thing I always say about CIS hockey or U Sport hockey now within Canada and in the university is probably the best kept secret as far as the high level hockey it is. There's not a lot of fans in some of the areas, but It's unbelievable brand of hockey. Unfortunately, it got canceled this year, but it is, a high level, obviously. And, you had a chance to play there for 3 years and had, a good 3 years. What are some of the biggest things that kind of you took away from university as far as just like, playing against older guys, the friendships you made? And you made a really good point earlier about some, university is a little bit different now because some guys are there to get an education and go on to work. Some guys are there because they want to play hockey and try to go to the next level. And, but you got guys that are dealing with rent, hydro bills, all that stuff on their own, living on their own for the first time. So there's a lot of different things that go into play, with university hockey. But what are a couple of things that kind of you took away, or that kind of you feel, if you look back at yourself in the first year of university to kind of your third, fourth year, like what are some things that you look at like, wow, this has changed, or I've really like kind of matured this way? Or
I'd say just kind of getting back to like what I talk about the old man about converting stuff to real life is, so like we said, when you go to university, there's basically a bunch of different priority levels. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when it comes Friday, Saturday, you want to win. And so you want to give yourself the best chance possible to do that. For someone like myself, like I'd be on the fourth line, but I was a tryhard. So every day in practice, I'm going hard. I'm going to the gym. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do barely anything in the game. Let's call it a spade. But as I got older, you want to be a leader. And it's about finding different ways to motivate different personalities. So let's say later in life, like let's say you for your job, it's you got to find different ways to motivate your employees. You know what I mean? So in junior, it's not hard to motivate people. It's like, listen, like especially let's say my last year in the BCJHL, it was like, if you're not doing well, you're getting traded. So guys work hard because they want to stay there. Whereas when you're at Western, it's like you kind of want to, okay, so now I'm not huge on going out. I'll go out once a week or whatever, but there's guys that do a lot more than that. But you got to be buddies with those guys because you want to be able to motivate them for the next week. You know what I mean? So like, let's say one of my buddies, Spencer Caldwell is his name. You got to go out with him a little bit more than you're comfortable doing just because, and then next thing you know, okay, he's your buddy. And then when you're at practice and you're like, Cobby, like, come on, man, like, let's go.
Right,
you can push him a little bit. Now you're his buddy. And he's like, yeah, okay, let's go. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that was huge. And, it's also really like, I loved the schooling part of it. Like I never thought I'd say that, but I did. It's so much nicer. Like you just go for like, if you set your schedule up, right, you go for 3 hours a day and you bang out your work. And that was great too. Like I learned how to learn, like the stuff I learned at university, like my classes weren't very applicable to,
I think that's common though in general, right?
For sure.
But
But the bigger picture is I'm learning a ton about time management. I'm learning a ton just about how to learn something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm good at learning hockey stuff. Okay, well, eventually hockey's going to be over. So now I got to learn how to learn computer stuff, how reading textbooks, blah, 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 whatever it is. And honestly, overall, it's a fantastic life experience. Like it's just one step, like a half a step away from hockey, but a full step towards more real life, I would say. Right. It's hard to, I probably explained that pretty brutally, but it's hard to explain, but once you experience it, it makes a lot more sense.
No, I think it kind of, for me anyway, with college, university, whatever you're going to, especially when you're moving away or you're part of a team, right? Mm-hmm. I think you grow obviously, but you learn more life skills, let's be honest, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly what you're saying, how to socialize with your hockey team, which we've always done, so that's easy. Mm-hmm. But now you got to deal with professors. You got to deal with people that don't care if you go to class or not. Yeah. You got to try to get grades. You're paying money to go there. Yeah. You know what I mean? People are sacrificing for you to do this, so like there's a little pressure there. Mm-hmm. And then also the other thing about like paying your own gas, potentially paying your own hydro, paying your own, for some people that's all new stuff too, right? So I think there's a lot of like growing up that happens there. Mm-hmm. I love the independence of it. I love I could go to class or didn't have to go to class. I could do my work or not do my work. I chose usually the better of the two, but you can definitely easily fall off the rails and fail out of school. That's not
for sure,
right?
100%. And I was kind of similar to you. Like it was nice having that freedom in school. Like you're not being babied anymore. It's like, okay, if you don't hand an assignment, like you're not going to have your teacher come in and being like, hey, listen, I'll give you an extra week, but give you like a sterney. Like, it's just like, this is what goes on. You know what I mean? So you have to take care of yourself. And for the most part, I always went to class just because I'm very structured like that. But there's a couple courses where I didn't like the prof. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go to that class because it's a waste of my time. I'm going to read the textbook. I'm going to teach myself. Like, you know what I mean? It's just being a big boy, being like, okay, here's the end goal. Do whatever you can to get there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And you kind of have to wrestle with that a bit and figure it out yourself. My first year was a disaster. And by the end, I was getting really good grades, and you just kind of figure it out. It's like you say, the independence aspect of it is awesome. You really, it can be a sink or swim for sure though. Like there's people who struggle with it. So
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's great. Well, listen, buddy, I really appreciate your time, man. This has been awesome. And I'd like to do a round two with you and just chat a little bit even more just about like life after hockey. Cause I think that's a hard crossroads for a lot of people to go through, right? Is like, what do we do after we're done? What do we do when we're not going to the rink every day and spending 3 hours a day training and skating and stuff like that? You know what I mean? So, but yeah, we'll definitely, we'll reconvene and chat a little bit more about kind of some of that stuff and other things that are going on too. So
yeah, perfect.
it's
Right
awesome.
Thanks for having
buddy.
me on. Appreciate
All right,
it.
say hi to the folks for me, okay?
Yeah, we'll do.
To kind of raise that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps,
Huge strides in the performance.
that I might not be the player I am today.